Good morning, everybody. And from the AAG hospitals, we'd like to thank the organizers for giving us this opportunity to do this live workshop over the next 1.5 hours. We have 4 interesting cases, one ESG for obesity, spiral endoscopy for a small intestinal lesion, and 2 anti-reflex endoscopic surgeries for patients with reflux esophagitis. Over the next 1 hour, we'll be doing these cases. Our faculty would be Dr. Rakesh. As you can see him, he's already started the case and will explain to you. And Dr. Nitin Jagtap for the ESG case. We have Dr. Mohan with the spirus, and I'll be demonstrating later the anti-reflex procedures. We also have an anesthetic team headed by Dr. Santosh. Dr. Harnath is here, and we have a big team of anesthetists helping us, because all these procedures require intubation. We have what we're going to do is, because these cases require a lot of time each, we are going to rotate from one endoscopy theater to another endoscopy theater, and something interesting comes, we'll come back quickly to this. I think the moderators are Dr. Samal, Dr. Patnaik, if I'm not mistaken. Are they all there? Are the moderators there, or are we talking to empty spaces?
Sir, good afternoon. Dr. Samal here.
Samal, okay. Yeah, it was nice seeing you yesterday, Samal. Anyway, so I think we will start the case now. We'll ask Rakesh to start off. He'll explain what he's doing ESG along with Nitin. Nitin?
Yes, sir. So good morning, everyone. So we'll just start with the first case for today. And can I have the history on? Yeah. Harsh, can you tell the history?
This is a 38-year-old male with recent onset diabetes mellitus with obstructive sleep apnea, and on ultrasound has a grade 3 fatty liver. Currently, the weight of the patient is 105 kgs with a BMI of 34. The fibroscan shows a CAP of 400 with a fibrosis score of 7. He's had a failed dietary as well as a lifestyle intervention, and he's planned for an endoscopic sleep gastroplasty.
Okay. Thank you, Harsh. So we'll straight away go into the procedure. Can I request for the video to be played? So we thought we'll just show you an animation also, how this device looks on the animation. So as you see here, you please focus on my hands here. So this is a device already I have mounted, and this is called Apollo Overstitch. Can you just hold on the video for a while? So I'm using a double channel Olympus scope with already fit in Apollo Overstitch device, which has got a couple of components. The one what you're seeing here is the handle of the device. Then you have double channels. So one channel is, I have put in the anchor exchange device, and in another channel I have put the helix. Now can you start playing the video? So I'll show you externally and also endoscopically how we start the first suturing. So as you see here, you also have the animation video. So you put in the anchor exchange out, and then already there is a preloaded suture. So you take the anchor exchange device inside, open the needle driver, and you mount the anchor exchange on the needle and open it up. So once it opens, as you see here, the suture is loaded. So this is how it is done, and you see the same thing on the animation video. So now what I'm going to do is I'll bring out the helix, which you can see on the left side. The anchor exchange is on the 3.7 millimeter channel of the scope, and the helix is on the 2.8 mm channel of the scope. So this is how it is done. And can I request you to stop the video? So now I'm going to take the first bite of the ESG. I start on the anterior wall at the incisura, take the greater curvature, and then the posterior wall. So I'll just show you how I'm going to do the first suture. Helix out. So this is the anterior wall. Okay, rotate. One more. Yeah. So as you see here, I am pulling in the helix with the muscle tissue and then turning a little right so that I can get the, I can close the needle driver. And once I close the needle driver, I'm going to push the anchor exchange down, and then you can feel the click sound when you're doing it. So once the suture is deployed, Then I gently, you can see my hand movement. I'll gently push the anchor exchange inside, and then you can wind the helix out. 4, yeah. So now the helix is inside my scope. Then I'll open the needle driver and push the tissue away. So as you see here, the first knot has come. Can you appreciate it? That's one. So I have finished the anterior wall. Now I'll redo the same process again. Load and then go to the posterior wall. So in the meantime, can I request Satya to play the animation which is there, the second video, just for the audience to understand. So now I am going on to the greater curvature. Okay. Helix out. Yes. Yeah. So now I gently pull in the tissue again like how I did earlier. This is on the greater curvature. And then redo the same process. So as you see an animation, Nitin, can you just explain them the...
So now in animation video, this is older video which is showing initially the anterior wall and posterior wall are marked with APC and followed by a first suture is taken at anterior wall, then at greater curvature, and then at the posterior wall along the lesser curvature, so that the complete U-shaped pattern is followed, and subsequently you reach at the first point and use the cinching device to cinch the suture.
Right.
And usually for completion of this procedure, you require around 6 sutures, and each suture you can take around 6 to 9 bites.
Yeah. So now as you see here, I've come to the posterior wall and taken a bite again. Now I'll repeat the same process. And as you have seen in the animation video, I'm going to go back onto the posterior wall in a U-shaped pattern and then come back to the anterior wall. So I have again the same process. Load the suture and then take a bite here, 1 or 2 centimeters below the first bite on the posterior wall. Yeah. As you see here, now I have taken another bite. I'll make sure that the tissue is exactly between the 2 towers so that I get good amount of chunk. Okay. Unwind. Okay. Open. You see? So now I finish the posterior wall. Now I'll go back to the greater curvature and take the, I'll load it again. Go back to the posterior, greater curvature and then take another bite. Yeah. Yes. Helix out. Okay. Enough. One more. Yeah. No. One more time. Yeah. 4. Okay. Keep talking. Yeah. So now I again go to the, do the same steps. Okay. Right. So now you see I have taken the tissue on the greater curvature and then trying to go back to the anterior wall where I started. Yes. So now these are the sequence of steps what somebody does when they're doing a dance. So you should not forget those steps, and this comes with practice. Okay. So now I have come back to my original position. So I'll take another chunk of tissue here. Okay. Yeah, please. Hold on. Go back. Wind back. Yeah. So I'll go to the place where I started a little more. I'm not very comfortable with going on to that end. Yeah. Now it's okay. Yeah. Take it. 1 second. Let them have a clean view. Yeah. Now I think it's good. So you'll have a little bit of blurred view when you take the suture. But once, yeah, open. Yeah. Helix is out. So now you see here, I've come to the anterior wall and finished my sixth suture. So what I'm going to do now is I'll drop my suture here and then cinch it. Take out the helix, please. So this, as you see here, I have completed the first round of suturing. And now, can you show me the hand movement? Can you show them the hand movement? So what I'm doing now is I will drop the suture and then cinch it. So I'll just press this blue button. As you see there, the suture got dislodged, the T-tag got dislodged. And now when you just give some thrust on this, you see here the whole suture, the mucosa is getting approximated like this. So this is how it shows that it is a full thickness suture. So now again, the second important step is, you see here, this is called cinch, the another part of the device. So this is the one which is used to tie a knot. So this comes like this, and then you mount the suture onto this. Then, yeah, can you pull that? Yeah, just show them. Yeah, show Srinivasa's hands. Yes. Yeah, gently pull that tag inside the cinch. Yes. Okay. So now as you see here, the suture is mounted on, the cinch is mounted on the suture. And can you show them the hand movements? Okay. So now you see in the endoscopic view, I am putting in the cinch inside, and then the cinch will be exactly mounted on at the place where the suture is. I'll give some thrust on the suture and then deploy this cinch. So this part of the suturing on the first round will be finished. So you see here on the endoscopy screen. So what I'm going to do is I'll just gently push this cinch inside the mucosa. And if you can show the hand movements, what I'm doing is I'm using my left hand to give maximum thrust onto the suture. I'm winding the suture onto my hands and then giving thrust like this. As you see here, my scope is literally hanging in the air. And with this, I will push the cinch. And one important point, what you have to notice here when people who have just started is, the cinch should be out with those circular rings at least 2 to 3 centimeters out of the tower. Okay. Now, Srinivas, can you do the cinch? Please show Srinivasa's hands how he is doing it. Yeah, open. He'll push with both the hands tightly so that the cinch gets dislodged. You see there? Can you appreciate? The first suture is done. The cinch is inside the mucosa deep, and the first round of the suturing is done. This way, I start from incisura and then come up to the GE junction, 4 to 5 centimeters below the Z line. So we leave the fundus and then suture the stomach as a tubular organ when it comes to from incisura till below the GE junction. So now I will be going to the second part of the suturing. So I'm taking the suture again, which is again mounted onto the anchor exchange, and repeat the same steps. So as you see here, I am first putting in the anchor exchange inside the scope, and the animation what you have seen earlier. So the same way you can see the anchor exchange coming out. We just have to make sure that the anchor exchange, once it enters inside the scope, you have good amount of free movement, because with the free movement, if it is not there, it might sometimes bungle up. So you see here, I have taken the anchor exchange inside. Now the needle driver is out. I'll put the anchor exchange on the needle driver, and now I'm ready to suture the second part. I'm taking the cinch into the 2.8 mm small channel of the double channel scope. So once the helix is out, then I'll start my suturing from here. That is a centimeter or 2 centimeters above the first line of sutures. Okay. Helix out. Yeah. Start. 4. Okay. The same step. Gently push the helix inside, and then same steps repeating. Anchor exchange down. The needle is the suture is deployed. Helix out. 4. Okay. Yeah. So now you see. Can I appreciate? I am done with the anterior wall. Now I go on to the greater curvature. And before that, as I told you, the sequence of steps, load the suture and be ready. Okay, so now I'll go to the greater curvature. Yes. So this typically takes around 45 minutes to 1 hour sometimes. And it's a time taking procedure, but still the more robustly you put your sutures, the better will be the outcome of the patient in terms of weight loss. Yeah. Okay. Okay, perfect. So now I am done with the greater curvature. I'll go to the anterior wall and then put one suture there. So there are some school of thoughts of putting in 7-8 bites also. It all depends on how big the stomach size is. But usually we take a U pattern, which includes mostly 6 sutures. But Nitin, I think we have some studies also where they have used 7 to 8 or sometimes even 10 to 12 also, isn't it?
Yes, yes. On an average, each suture, one can take around 6 to 9 bites per suture. And depending on the stomach size, you require 5 to 6 sutures for each patient.
Yeah. I think 5 to 6 in Indian stomach is minimum what we have in our experience. Okay. Okay. So you see now I have come to the posterior wall again. So what I'm going to do now is go a little more lateral and then take more amount of tissue on the posterior wall itself so that there will be good amount of reduction in the stomach volume. And I am a little bit, because see, as you know, this procedure involves a lot of cost from the material being used. So I usually have the typical Indian mentality of using the suture for the maximum. Sometimes the stomach is big. We usually also go for 10 to 12 bites. So that end of the day, the patient should have the maximum benefit one can have. Yeah. Okay. Yes. 4. Yeah. Right. And now another question what somebody will have is how many times we have to revolve. So there is no hard and fast rule of how many times to revolve because it all depends on how much good amount of tissue you got into. So usually around 4 to 5 revolutions of the helix are good. But again, as I told you, it's again case dependent. So now I have taken the posterior wall and going back to the greater curvature. So again, load the suture. So these steps are very important and trust me, they are not like really a rocket science. Once you get used to the rhythm, you will easily adapt it. Yeah. Okay. One more. Yeah. Okay. So a little bit of bleed happens, but they are all self-controllable. And because we are doing this suturing, it itself gives a good tamponade sometimes.
So Rakesh, that's a very nice demonstration. As you're going on, shall we shift to the spirus enteroscopy and come back to you?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll go to the spirus enteroscopy where another new device that Dr. Mohan Ramchandani has published a lot in this area is going to show us. Mohan?
Female with a history of chronic non-bloody diarrhea, Anasarca. There's multiple history of blood transfusions with the hemogram showing a hemoglobin of 7 and an albumin of 1.8. The blood reports are generally unremarkable with the elevated fecal calprotectin of 356. The endoscopy, ileocolonoscopy as well as CT enteroclysis was unremarkable. Now the patient has been planned for an antegrade spiral enteroscopy. Over to Dr. Mohan Ramchandani.
Good morning. So this is yet another case for deep enteroscopy, and we are using a new device. I have along with me Dr. Anirudh and our anesthesia team, Dr. Upender, and our chief technicians. So regarding the new device, spiral enteroscopy, I think this is like a paradigm shift in the management of small bowel disorders, where now we have a scope which can do some therapeutic procedure also. Moreover, the spirus enteroscope, I mean, this is the first time that we are using a scope which is driven by a motor. So you don't have to, work out or do push and pull maneuvers as we were doing in balloon assisted enteroscopy. And the good thing about this scope is that it is 160 centimeter long, and that makes us to use all the accessories which are available in our routine endoscopy room for therapeutic procedures. Moreover, there is a therapeutic channel of 3.2 which enables us to pass accessories very easily. The third good thing about this scope is there is a dedicated water channel. By a push of pedal, you can spray water, especially will be helpful in dealing with bleeding points. Most important part of the scope is this disposable over tube, which is mounted on the proximal end of the scope, and this motor drives this over tube in two directions, either clockwise. Once it is moving clockwise, the scope is propelled inside. When you are moving it anti-clockwise, the scope is withdrawn back. So in that moment, you have to just push a pedal which will guide this scope forward or backward direction. Constantly, you will be reminded about the resistance felt by this machine, where there will be dots in the maximum on the backward direction or forward direction. Because you are using a motor for propulsion, you do not have the tactile feedback. And if you do not have the tactile feedback, you should have a gauge, especially the computerized, sophisticated over tube, which looks like a plastic over tube, but it has got many sensors available, which senses the pressure and tells us whether you are overdoing or trying to negotiate a stricture or a kink, which may cause perforation if we are not very cautious. But the good thing is that if the resistance rises above maximum level, the machine stops. That is why sometimes it is difficult to pass through the esophagus or DJ flexure. So let us see. For the want of time, I have mounted the over tube and already in the stomach now, and we'll go forward from here into the duodenum.
Mohan, just show the patient positions. Which patient I'm in the
Patient
supine
is
or
in the
pro-
left lateral position, Dr. Samuel.
Yeah.
He is in the lateral position. But as we progress, we will change the position. We'll talk about the change of position once it is required, because you need to do a lot of pressure maneuvers when you are into the mid ileum or mid jejunum, where sometimes the propulsion is not up to the expectation, and then you have to give abdominal massage or do some pressure as we do in colonoscopy to reduce the loops.
Yeah.
So that is required. And one thing very important in this scope is, if you have now I'm using CO2 to insufflate intestine, but this scope has got accessory water channel. Push. So you can see that water is being, you can fill the intestine with water, and we can switch off the CO2 that completely collapse the intestine. And once the intestine is collapsed, it is very important for us to keep the vision underwater, but do not insufflate the intestine too much. That will help in propelling the scope in a much easier way, because the over tube can grip the intestine in much efficient way if the bowel is collapsed. So that is what I am doing. I am trying to go underwater. And I use fluoroscopy more often to see, because in this sometimes you are semi-blind. You may not be able to go forward, and because of the kinks, you may use sometime the contrast study to know where you are. So the first problem in this scope is post-cricoid region, where you need to negotiate this scope after dilatation. And the second problem is in the DJ flexure. As we are facing now, we are gradually trying to negotiate this DJ flexure by minimizing the air, straightening the scope. Can you show the fluoroscopy, please? You can see there is a loop in the stomach. Now I'll
Yeah.
remove this loop by straightening the scope. You can see I'm pulling the scope that straighten the esophagus, straighten the scope, and then I can be the resistance offered is much less if the scope is straight like this. You can see now I have rotated my scope in such a way. Can you switch off the CO2, please? So you can see now screen. Can you show the screen, please? You can see now the gastric fold, the scope was taking the shape of greater curve. Now it is on the lesser curve. So the scope is, there is no looping in the stomach. That makes this scope straight, and now you can see we can swim across. And I'm not insufflating the CO2, and I'm seeing that through the translucency of the water. And I'm just pushing the pedal, and scope is moving very nicely in a forward direction. Sometimes you can see there's a point where the scope will not propel. So you have to come back like this. Can you see the spiral rotation force meter on your screen?
No, we don't see.
That tells
Yeah,
me
you can see it.
how much is the resistance. And if the resistance is too much, I come back. So I come back slightly, reduce the resistance, and then wait. And then again the scope will start moving. So while going, I'm not bothered to see any lesions, because if there is any stricture, it will be seen anyway. But I'm not trying to see any angiodysplasia or any small ulcers, because if I do that, I'll insufflate too much of CO2, which will inflate the intestine, and then my spiral overtube will not be that efficient. So if you want to do panantroscopy, do not insufflate CO2, but do more carefully underwater. You can see we are doing underwater, and the scope is moving. Can you show the fluoro, please? You can see we are making a good progress. But as you see on the endoscope, the small bowel is moving, but if you see on the fluoroscopy, the loop is not forming. Those who have used a single balloon or double balloon enteroscope, they will know that as we are progressing, we are forming more loops. If the loops are more, our therapeutic endoscopy becomes less efficient, because you have to pass the accessory in a looped scope. But if the scope is straight, relatively straight, then the passage of accessory becomes much easy, especially if you have a therapeutic channel of 3.2, and scopes work on a principle where it attracts the intestine, not push the intestine. So you are basically staying at one position and pulling the bowel towards yourself. So you are shortening the intestine, and you can clearly see how good the advancement is, but fluoroscopically there is not much change. Can you show the fluoro picture, please? You can see, even if I have gone into the around 100 centimeter, but we are still the fluoro the fluoro is showing that not even single loop has formed. So I come back slightly because the scope is not advancing. So I just stay there, suck out all the water and wait for spiral to take over. Can you switch on the CO2 for some time? So sometime when the resistance becomes slightly more, I switch on the CO2 for a minute and try to negotiate that angled bowel. Can you show the screen, please? And I use the contrast, please. Take on, there is a sharp bend now. There is a very sharp bend. So I will use the contrast to see, to have a road map. Where is the bowel going? Like this. So you can see by just movement of my hand, we could negotiate that bend. And I'm just injecting contrast to see move ahead. You can see now this is contrast assisted enteroscopy, where I know that there is not much of kinking there. So I'll keep on going. So again, there is a blind spot. Again, we will come back a bit, and then we will,
Mohan,
yeah.
shall we now go to the third case?
Yes, of course.
So I think we are now in the room 1, endoscopy suite 1, to demonstrate another new technique that is not been commonly done. First of all, before starting this technique, this is the patient who has reflux, and I think we can have the slides on patient's history. You can see 30-year-old male patient who's having reflux. Medications is been taking for long for this. Esophageal manometry was normal, but I think obviously 24-hour pH abnormality showed abnormal score. He's been on long-term medications. He doesn't want to take anything furthermore, and he wants a more permanent treatment. More permanent treatment in this case could be surgery in form of laparoscopic fundoplication. But again, there are several problems with this. So unmet need was, can we do something endoscopically? There are 2 endoscopic procedures we can offer these patients in our country at least. One of them is Gerdex, which we'll be demonstrating subsequently, but a much easier procedure is what we're going to do now. This is the procedure called AMA. Can we have the patient slides? We have the, yeah. Can we go to the next one? Do we have the findings of the ambulatory pH? Don't have? It's okay. So, yeah, you can come back. So what we're going to demonstrate in this patient, a very simple technique. Now I'm starting with this technique because once you see this technique, any one of you doing regular endoscopy can follow it. It's not very complicated. I learned it actually watching Professor Haruni do it. It's a very simple technique. Who is moderating, can I know? Samal is there still?
I'm still here, sir. I'm still here,
Samal,
sir.
and then who else? Who else is there?
Dr. Patnaik supposed to be here. I don't find him. And
So anyway, Samal, you are good enough for everything. So
Right,
can
sir.
you, is my voice clear? My voice is
yeah,
clear
it's
for
clear.
you?
Voice and visual, everything is clear.
So before, this is a technique that is anti-reflex mucosal ablation. We have to ablate the mucosa. Earlier on, we used to do what's called ARMS, anti-reflex mucosal resection we used to do. We used to remove the mucosa and fibrosis used to be there. But this procedure in our hands and hands of many other people was not so good. So therefore, we switched over to AMA now. Now, before we start the procedure, I'd like to show you the setting of the APC. The camera can focus. This is very important. This is a crucial part of this.
Yeah.
Samal, can you see this?
I can
you
see it, sir. I can see
You
it.
can see that we are using a regular Irby
Yeah.
300D. We are on forced coagulation. We are using a flow rate of 1 liter per minute, effect 1, and wattage is 100. So this is 111, very important, remember. Okay. Now we'll go in this patient. I'm using a 190 Olympus scope with a channel of 2.8. You can use 2.8 or you can use even a therapeutic channel if you have. So I intubate this patient to be and
Okay.
then Are you getting the endoscopy pictures? I think you
I'm
get the
getting it. Yes, sir.
you're getting?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I've gone into the stomach, and you can see in this patient, this is very important. When you select a patient for this procedure, he should not have above grade A esophagitis, either NERD or grade A. Grade
Okay.
B you can, but response is not so good. Second is Hills should be below 2. So we'll check the
Okay.
Hills grading also. So now there's not much esophagitis here. It's already been on PPI. So I'll suck out all the fluid, and then I'll do the Hills grading. Hills grading, very important that the scope should distend the stomach, and then you retrova the scope, and then you come back. Now this would be actually grade 1 only. Okay. So this is the ideal case for a procedure like this. They respond. So Samal, this is clear. The Hills also
Yeah,
is
it
very
is, yes.
clear here.
It is very much
Yeah,
clear.
very clear. So what we'll now have to do is that we have to create an ablation of the mucosa predominantly on the greater curve, leaving about 1 centimeter on the lesser curve. And this is again very clearly see the droplet that's coming out is on the greater curve side. So I do it on that side, leaving the lesser curve on this side. What you see. One
Okay.
important rule is always gastric mucosa. We should never go to the esophageal mucosa. If you go to the esophageal mucosa, you'll produce a stricture there. The second important rule, Arma, is that we have ablation of 2 centimeters on the greater curve side and 1 centimeter on either side. So because of this, the scar which is formed drags the mucosa and forms a valve there.
Okay.
Okay, we'll start the procedure now. I've marked out very clearly now where I want to do. I'm going to use an APC catheter with forced coagulation. I think all of you are using this APC catheter anyway, so nothing new
Yeah.
about it. There are several straight firing, circumferential, oblique, and so on. This is a straight firing catheter.
Okay.
We can put marks if you want, but again, not very essential in this case because I can see it so clearly where I'm going to start. I'm going to start somewhere in this part. You can see what I'm doing. This is also very important. The camera can focus on my hand. I get this catheter a little here. I'm not manipulating the catheter, I'm manipulating the scope. See this?
Okay. Uh-huh.
I'm
Yeah.
manipulating the scope. Okay. So I keep it at distance here. This is usually supposed to be non-touch, but many times the touch happening there.
Yeah.
Okay. And I go very close, and then I'll press the coagulation button. This is the point we start.
Maybe when
So
you
if you
increase
have about
the
1
setting is
millimeter from the mucosa, you start
Yeah.
getting the this thing. Okay. Sometimes it takes initial flow to start off. So
yeah.
and then once the flow starts, then you can see. So this is the outrage on this side I'm going to do. Usually we keep 1 liter flow, but you can increase it sometimes a little more also. See here, this is very important point that I'm going to about 2 centimeter on this side. See this, so this part in the greater curve, I'm going down there. See there?
Yeah.
Whereas in the side, I'll do only 1 centimeter. So this produces the scarring that you want. So this is the area where we have to go a little deeper. This is like a carpentry work, you know, or painting here.
Yeah.
So what happens is when this mucosa which you're injuring here starts getting healed, it produces fibrosis, and that fibrosis produces a scar which pulls especially this area on the greater curve into a valve-like appearance. Actually, if you look at this after 4 weeks, You will see it very nicely, a valve there. So, okay, I have to extend it down there, and on the sides I'll go up to here, this side, and this side up to here with 1 centimeter. So I'll keep doing this, and when we finish the final picture, I'll show you. Meanwhile, I think you can go to Rakesh if he's doing something interesting. Rakesh,
Sure, sir.
we'll clean
Come
the floor.
back. We have done 5 sutures. As you see here, I am on the 6th suture level. So I'll just show you how it is looking. As you see here, I started from the incisura and you can see a tunnel kind of thing. I probably need 2 more sutures. So what I'm doing is I'll again start with the anterior curvature and then come back. So now usually in these kind of cases where we have this post ESG, we have a definite protocol which we follow at our institute how to manage these patients. Post-operatively, it's an overnight stay for some, and some people, they usually go back in the same day also, depending on the general condition and our anesthesia team, if they are fine with the overall physical condition. 1 second. Post-operatively, first 1 week, the patient will be completely on a liquid diet, and then 2nd and 3rd weeks, it will be semi-solid prune diet. 4th week will be a stable routine diet in a low-calorie form. So as you see here, my scope, one important thing in ESG is you need to have good movements, because you have to align yourself in such a way that you get good amount of tissue. Helix back. Okay. So as you see here, I have taken a little bit of bloody field will be there, but should not be worried, because as I told you earlier, it will have a self-tamponade. So at the end, you will be achieving good amount of hemostasis. In our experience so far, with around 200 plus cases, we never had any major bleeds, fortunately. These are all tiny vessels underlying the mucosa, which quite often bleed, but they're all self-limiting. I'll just flush and then try to clear my field. I have taken the anterior wall suture, and now I'll go to the greater curvature and take 1 more. So before that, we load.
So at the 1 year of follow-up, we expect around 20% of total body weight loss, which will correspond to around 60% of excess body weight loss at 1 year.
Yeah.
And as all you know that obesity is a chronic relapsing disease, this patient has to be on regular follow-up so that they can discuss their diet plans, exercise, and their lifestyle. Now we have 5-year data published from Rim Sharaya, which is showing more than 80% of people, 80% of patients maintain weight loss of more than 15% at the end of 5 years. So we also recently published our data on effect of endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty on NFLD scores, and this is showing that increasing number of patients who had a significant liver fibrosis has decreased to low F1, F2 fibrosis compared to F3 fibrosis.
Alignment. So what's
Rakesh-
happening here is there's a little bit of loss of the alignment. We'll just try to rectify it.
Rakesh, do you have any comparative head-to-head trial between surgery and this?
So there are no direct comparative study, but there are papers from Spain which has compared endoscopic sleeve and laparoscopic sleeve. As compared to laparoscopic sleeve, the laparoscopic sleeve is having more than 30% total body weight loss at 1 year, but laparoscopic sleeve is associated with more side effect and prolonged hospital stay as compared to endoscopic suturing. So the patient who are falling into type 1 and type 2 obesity are good candidate for endoscopic therapy rather than subjecting them to the surgical procedures.
As you see here, I'm just getting one scissors to cinch it. So as you see here, I almost came up to the fundus. This is a G junction. So probably I'll take one more suture and then leave the fundus part like that. We'll come back if at all from the spirus after 5 minutes, so that we will show you the end of the suturing pattern. Can we go to spirus if Mohan is ready there?
Welcome back. So we are progressing, and can you show the fluoro picture, please? So you can see now we have progressed a lot, and almost like we are nearing. I'll just push the contrast to see where we are. Screen. You can see I may have one sharp bend there. Kunja water. So that's how we keep a track on what we are doing by pushing the contrast and see how far is the cecum. So probably so you can by seeing the mucosa, you may not be able to tell where you are, but as we progress into the ileum, the mucosal, the villus architecture, you can see now is slightly stunted, and there will be feculent material coming in our view. So that if you can see the yellow fecus,
Oh no.
that means you are into the ileum or nearing the IC valve.
Mohan, how do you dilate
I think
the?
Satya can hear us. We can shift to this room just briefly and then go back.
Yes.
Satya, yeah, okay. Now Sambal, we are on the on again.
Yes, sir, you can see. Yeah.
So you can. I'm just completing the procedure. So I thought I'll just show you the final bit. So what you can see in this is that what we have done is that we have made like a necklace. This is actually a diamond necklace on the neck of a person.
Yeah.
It is hugging there, and you can see this part goes down 2 centimeters. On the
Yeah.
side, lateral sides is 1 centimeter, and we left a small part in the lesser curve side. So this is the final picture of this. This is the diamond necklace picture. And after 4 weeks, when you come back, you'll see this whole thing has formed a valve there, closing the D junction, and reflux is prevented. Okay.
Sir, any chance of bleed afterwards when the ulcer
No,
forms?
bleeds are
afterwards?
very low chance. You see, we had actually during the process small bleed when you're away. We immediately coagulated. There's absolutely no problem. We have to put some water onto that area because of the thing, and then very nicely we can see if there's any bleed. And then, so these patients we put on PPI for at least because healing takes 4 weeks, and after 4 weeks we stop the PPI. Okay.
Right. Right, sir.
So I just wanted to show the final picture so that you'll have an impression of what we are doing. Okay. Thank you.
Right, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent.
So this is a procedure where we have to be very patient, and as we come to the ileum, the progress become very slow, and sometimes the enteroscope do not advance. But you can see my assistant Santosh's hand is constantly doing abdominal massage. So very gently we have to do this to allow this over tube to be pleated. Or sometimes you are just trying to mechanically pleat the intestine on the over tube, and that does help a lot, especially when the advancement becomes slow, and you can see after some time the resistance is increasing to the maximum and the machine is stopping. But don't give up. You keep on doing by just coming out. You can see I'm now backward rotation, and I'm asking Santosh to give some abdominal massage, and then suddenly if the grip again comes back, the machine starts rotating and the pleating becomes more effective. So it's a waiting game. It's not like, if you're not advancing, you just start coming out. So what we will do is we will have again a contrast study, because we have now progressed a lot. Then we'll see where we are. Can you show that? Yes. You can see now, I think after this loop, we will be in the CCOM. Now again, this you can see how fast it is going. So that's what I'm saying. And sometimes you have to just back like a spring. You have to come back to move forward, because you can see I'm just going down, and you can see the fluid, the yellow colored, amber colored fluid. That is classical of terminal ileum.
Mohan, how do you prepare this patient? Colonoscopy fluid?
Yeah, that's so we prepare the patient with a peg-leg preparation, not because the antegrade requires preparation, but in this patients we prepare them because we may require a bidirectional enteroscopy. Sometimes we are not able to complete the procedure, and we mark that the deepest insertion by tattooing or doing clipping over there, and come back from the retrograde. But suppose you want only antegrade enteroscopy, then no need for preparation. You can just keep them nil by mouth for overnight fasting and do in the morning.
And the other thing is, how do you dilate while going the opposite sphincter? What do you use to dilate that?
The dilator of the small bowel dilator?
No. When they're introducing this scope, the dilation of the
Yeah. So we do around 18 to 20 mm Severi-Glad dilator for esophagus, because this overtube is 3 centimeter wide, and sometimes the esophagus, if it is not pliable, or there are some subtle webs over there, they may cause obstruction, and your scope will not progress. To overcome that, you preemptively dilate in all cases. And you can see we are progressing very fast now.
Yeah. You're almost reaching close to IC1.
So we'll be in CCOM very soon.
And average, how much time you take in this compared to single balloon? This one, I mean, must be very fast.
Dr. Samal, your voice is slightly.
How much time you take? How much time you take?
So this takes around to reach to the CCOM in a well-selected patient. I'm talking about those patients like post-operative adhesions you will exclude. In such patient, you will reach in 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay. Right.
But there are chances that you may have to do bidirectional enteroscopy.
Okay.
Bidirectional, then it will take some time, because you have to negotiate through the colon again. So in that case, total time will be more. But here we are trying to do it in a single go. Again, see how abdominal massage is very important. That is helping me to achieve the depth of maximal insertion. So don't rely only on machine. You have to use the patient initially was on the left lateral position. Then there was some stoppage. Then we changed the position to supine. Then we are using abdominal massage or pressure tactics to propel the scope forward. Machine
Okay.
is there to help us, but we have to use our endoscopy skill to maximize the yield of the scope.
Okay.
You can see now we are almost in the cecum. The colonic type of fluid is coming now. So I'm using water spray and then sucking water. That also cause some aerodynamic or what to call that, and that propulsion is better. So you spray water, you remove CO2 and suck. That collapses the mucosa around the overtube and the fixity of overtube improves. Can we have some contrast more, please? Now once more we'll do the contrast study to see where we are. Screen. So still we have to go slightly one more loop. You can see one round and you will be in the cecum. Okay. So we'll go to the Rakesh case and see whether they have finished the ESG because they are
Yeah.
very.
So welcome back. As you see here on the screen, I am done with the 6th round of suture. I'm almost at the G junction. So this is the last suture what I'm going to put in this patient. So I'll give a good amount of thrust on the suture end and then push the cinch out. Yeah, cinch. Okay. Done. Okay. So now as you see here, there is a small amount of fundus being spared here. I don't want to exactly go into the stomach again because it's totally edematous and it's kind of a tubular organ now. As you see here, I'll just show you a little bit. See, you can see, appreciate here, the total fundus, I mean, excluding the fundus, the total antrum and the body of stomach have become a tubular organ. And now this part of the fundus will leave because there are a lot of short gastric veins and there is a tendency to bleed if you try to fiddle with from the luminal end. Of course, surgeons will be happy to do it from the gastrectomy when they do a sleeve gastrectomy. But we, from the endoscopy point of view, have to be very careful and cautious when you're fiddling with the fundus. So this ends the procedure here. And as we told you earlier, we will be keeping the patient nil by mouth for the next 12 hours and then start on liquid diet for a week. And then so we'll go according to the diet protocol. So as you see here, see, this is the G junction. You can see, appreciate here, Dr. Samal.
Yeah,
So
I
this
can
part of
see.
the fundus is left behind and I'm taking the scope out. So
Okay.
we'll be happy to
Good job.
answer any questions regarding this procedure if you have any from the audience.
Any questions from audience? Anybody want to ask any questions?
So if no more questions, then we'll go on to the next room.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mohan, I can't hear you. I can see you.
Okay.
Yeah, now you are audible.
So I think if Dr. Reddy is ready with the GERD-X, we can go to him. Can you give contrast, please? Yeah. So now we are coming to the CCOM, I think. We'll see. Can you give me some contrast, please? Screen.
This looks like CCOM actually. Folds and
One more, I
no.
think.
Oh,
You can see now we are taking a turn here based on the imaging. Screen. See that how I am rotating based on the screen. So this is a tight stricture over there, I think. Screen. There's a sharp bend of the ilium here. Water, water, water. Can you give me some contrast, please? Screen. Now I think at the IC valve. Screen. You can see now it's going into the colon. If you dip down, so there's some difficult turn over there at the IC valve. That is the IC valve from behind, I think. Ah. Suction. So I'm moving backward to assess where I am. Okay. Suction is not working. No. I want suction. Screen. Suction. Not. No. Green. CO2 on. Green. Can we have some contrast, please? Any questions or any point of discussion? Screen.
Mohan, did you find anything? And you didn't try to find out. Did you find anything so far?
Not yet. Not yet. So
Not yet.
I think I'll show you how to do a withdrawal in this patient.
Okay.
Because as I told while going, we do not take efforts to see, because our whole aim is to complete the procedure, so that because we are in the almost terminal ileum, and there it is taking a bit of time. So ideally it would be like to mark this area and come back by colonoscope to see the terminal ileum. You can see here it's almost there. Green. Screen. No. Okay. Stricture. I think there is an inflamed wall here, and that is not allowing this scope to go beyond this level. So we'll take the biopsies as this patient has evidence of protein losing enteropathy. We'll definitely take biopsies. And you can see now almost there. This is the kink, which is the end. I think this is the marking the end. So can you give me some contrast, please? I don't know whether that's the IC wall or this is just proximal to it. Screen. You can see that is going into the cecum. So that is the mark. This is the IC wall from
Yes.
behind.
Yeah. Correct.
So we'll negotiate this IC wall and come into the cecum. That is the cecum. Can you see the cecum now?
Yeah, you
That
can
is the
see.
cecum.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the cecum.
Cecum has more finding, I think, something there. Right?
Pardon?
Cecum.
Can you give me that contrast to make sure that? So we have come to the cecum. So that is the panenteroscopy, which can be achieved by the scope in relatively short time, less than 1 hour, which was unheard of in era of balloon assisted enteroscopy, where it will take around 2-3 hours to reach there. And you can see now that I am injecting the contrast into the cecum. You can see that it is in the capacious
hello?
cecum. Screen picture. So that is the cecum. So now we have.
Hello?
Yes.
No, sorry. I think Mohan,
Yeah.
I think you have done a fantastic job. Reach the cecum from the other side. So soon you'll be coming out of the rectum also now. So before you get out of the rectum, I think we'll just come here and see one procedure and come back.
Okay.
We'll be seeing you from the other end now.
Okay.
Okay. So, we are back to our room again. We earlier
sir.
showed a very simple procedure for reflex. We are now coming to a little more complicated procedure. This procedure is called GERD-X. And before that, we'll have the patient's history. So this is a female patient who also has a very abnormal 24-hour pH. The difference between that patient and this patient is that although Hill's grade 2 is there, pH is abnormal, this patient has a volume reflex. That is, she's feeling acidic sensation in the night, which comes in usually sometime wakes her up and she gets cough also. So it's a volume reflex. So procedure for her is going to be different. This is a procedure we're doing. If the camera can now focus, this is called the GERD-X procedure. Fortunately, I have with me somebody who's an expert, probably the world's largest experience, Dr. Rakesh. He has done this procedure. He just published a large RCT in the gut, which is going to come soon. Now, in this procedure, basically, we use this device called the GERD-X device. If the camera can focus on the device, the camera is focused. We actually started the procedure off the camera to save some time. So what we do is, after doing an endoscopy on a guide wire, this GERD-X device is inserted inside. And you can see the limb here, and you can see, if you're getting the endoscope picture, the limb movement here. Okay? Now, what Rakesh is doing is, he's put a pediatric scope through this, and he's actually assisting me, show me where exactly I am. So the pediatric scope is this is the camera for us, whereas the GERD-X itself doesn't have a camera. But the GERD-X head is very important. If you see the GERD-X head, on the GERD-X head, you have two handles, like a joystick. I'm holding it. There are 3 markers here. One is called the closing marker, the firing marker, and the opening marker. So everything is operated by a lever here, but it depends on where you put your marker actually. Okay, so now we are in a good position. You can see that this patient, we are actually close to the G junction. I want to put 2 sutures here, one at that point, and the other one, this is at about 7 o'clock position. The other one, I'll go to around 5 o'clock position. So at this point of time, what we'll do is, you can watch the second marker on the scope is just at the G junction. I'll just push it further up so that I'm very nearby, very nicely seeing. At that point of time, I'm going to now put this thing at the opening part, the marker, open the jaws here, and then open the jaws. And Rakesh is going to now point out exactly where I am. So I can move this way, that way to exactly get the point to where I'm going. I'm going to move it a little more. I think Rakesh, this is okay.
yeah.
I'm taking Rakesh and advice, but it's good position. Yeah, it seems to be in good position
Yeah.
to actually do the first part.
Helix.
So what we'll do in the first part is there's a helix here, which are going to loosen out.
Yeah.
Push it down. Push it down. Rotate it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to now see if I can pull it back.
Lock. Yeah, lock it.
No, I have to pull it back. Just loosen it a little more.
Yeah, loosen it. Yeah.
Loosen it, loosen it, loosen it. So I'm going to pull back
Yeah.
to see how much I'm getting. Yeah. So I got it
Okay.
back now. At this point, we lock it now. Lock it. He's going to lock it here. So that now the tissue is pulled back and it's a very deep tissue. I get almost a full thickness. At this point of time, I'm going to close my jaw. I'm closing now. This is the closing point. Same angle I use. This handle closed. Now it's closed. Okay. Now once it's closed, you can see on the fluoroscope, if you're getting the fluoroscope picture, how nicely at the G junction we are. Now, are you getting the fluoroscope picture? Samar, are you getting the fluoroscope picture?
Yeah. I'm getting, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see how it is now, how the two scopes are, how we are. And then at this point, I'm going to fire the stapler. For firing, I go to the firing point here. And then again, the same lever, but half press.
Can you have the external picture camera?
External camera, please. See, the same. I'm going to external
Yeah.
picture.
Show that.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So I'm going to press. Once I press, it becomes fixed. I can't press further. That means I've fired. So I fired now. If you can see very nicely, I fired. So what I'm going to now do is now I have to release the jaws. For that, first I'm going to release this helix. First I'm going to release the helix. Okay, loosen it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Once I release it, I'll try and see if I can get it out. Or sometimes if it's stuck there, we just have to wriggle it a little.
Okay.
I'll push this down further to release the helix.
Open. Yeah.
Open it further. Okay. Now whole thing is released. And then push it further. And then I'm going to turn the knobs a little. That is, I'm going to go back. And can you see the nice suture there? Samal?
Yeah. Very well visualized.
So Samal, your silence is frightening us a little. Whether
No, sir.
everything is
I'm
okay
just
there.
watching it intently.
Yeah. So now this part is over. Now we'll go to the second part where we'll actually show you how to insert this whole the device. First, we'll have to put the second group of staplers there, and then we're going to. So meanwhile, you can just look at the final part. Maybe you'll see more out of the rectum now, and then we'll get back to you as we are just inserting it.
So now we are observing the small bowel while coming back. In fact, so you can see I'm liberally insufflating with CO2 now. So that is the difference while going and coming back.
Okay.
You can see now, I can see on the all four quadrants and examine, because this patient has protein losing enteropathy. We'll take some jejunal biopsies because we did not find any erosive mucosal disease. And usually this protein losing enteropathy is a tough because we are looking for either lymphangiectasias or any mucosal abnormalities like Crohn's, but we did not find anything till the ileum. So whole intestine is being examined. So now at least we know that we are not dealing with any inflammatory bowel disease. So we are just taking the biopsies if that can help us in something, finding out something. There is no macroscopic lymphangiectasia in this patient. So enteroscopy helped us in this patient to rule out inflammatory bowel disease completely. And that enabled us to do biopsies from ileum and jejunum so that completes the diagnostic algorithm of the protein losing enteropathy.
While pulling out, Mohan, do you use motor or just pull it out?
That's a good question, and this is an important aspect of balloon assisted enteroscopy versus spiral enteroscopy. And if you see the balloon assisted enteroscopy, if you stay for this time in the deep intestine and you deflate the balloon, you will fall down. But this will never fall down because it has screwed the intestine. So unless you unscrew it, the bowel will not release. And that is very important doing therapeutic endoscopy, especially polypectomy, stricture dilatation, where you need a stability.
Okay. Mohan, thanks a lot, Mohan.
yeah.
So we'll switch on to this last part.
Okay,
We have about 5 minutes to demonstrate now.
Sure.
So the camera can come back to our room.
sure.
We'll be able to show this. Yeah. So we are back to the Gerdex room. So we just showed you the first stapling, how it should be done. Now we are going to show you how the staplers are fixed to the device and how we should actually do the second part. So if the camera can focus on Srinivas, our technician's hand, he's fixing the second part of the stapler. That is the suture device has got two parts. This is the part which is a plunger sort of thing is there. He's fixing it up. Can you fix it? The click comes and it sort of gets fixed. And this is the actual suture device which is fixed to the other side. So there's a plate and the suture. So both are fixed on the opposite arms, and when they get together, it actually, yeah. So now you can close the arms. So okay, we have closed the arms, and now the next important thing is already we placed a guide wire deep inside the stomach through the duodenum, and this guide wire has to go through both. There's a small opening here at the tip of this plastic part of this device, and it has to go through both. Yeah, and then come out below. And then you see with the finger we get this out, and then this goes to the opening here, and then yeah. So this is very important to see. Can you go low? Zoom. If you can zoom here, you can see that this wire is going through both the plungers and is going through this opening here, coming out. It's going to come out proximally there. The device can come here.
Sushil.
Okay. Yeah. So the other next important thing is how when you place this device, we have to see that it is the handle is towards you. The top, I think is not showing. Camera can show the top portion. Yeah. So you see the top portion, it is towards us. And then if you can go to the mouth now, we can take out this. The mouth. Oh, here. See here, we put a small pressure on the wire here, and exactly you have to be in the transverse position. Fluoro. You have to be very careful. You don't put too much pressure. And you can see on fluoroscopy. Can you see the fluoroscopy? You can see on fluoroscopy how it's broken down. Sabman, can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. It is. Same.
Okay. So we have now gone to the greater curve. We are going to remove the wire at this stage. And in this stage, it's very important that Rakesh is now going to put the pediatric endoscope through this opening to show me, because this is a blind tube. Unless I have a third eye seeing what is happening, I can't function. So Rakesh is going to put the pediatric endoscope through this small opening here. External, can you have the external picture, please? External picture. You can see how Rakesh is actually putting this.
Yeah.
They're also feeding another tube to pump in air if required, because the pediatric endoscope, the air that goes in is not so good. So we're putting another tube inside. So now we have gone inside, and now you can see that at this point of time, I have to retrovert the scope. I'm retroverting the scope, and as I retrovert, I push a little so that I am away from the mucosa. And again, this is the position that Rakesh is showing me. And you can see the nice first stapler. So what we have to do is we have to get back to this area. I'm going to fix this wheel here so that it doesn't move much. And then I'm going to now see if I can move my device more towards this side. Yeah, this side. Can Rakesh, can you
This
show
is
me?
5 o'clock.
Rakesh has
Yeah,
to
yeah,
move.
yeah.
Okay.
Open.
Yeah.
I'm moving it now so that I get to the area where there's a gap there. Now at this point, I'm going to open the device now.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Only 2 minutes left.
So
Mucosa tapiddam. Diaphragmatic irritation.
yeah. So we have to go here, right,
One second.
Rakesh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we are in a very good position. I'm going to open the.
కొంచెం
Put the helix.
వెనక్కి చేస్తారు సార్
పర్వాలేదు, మంచిది.
పింకిష్ మీకు
3 times. Pull back.
I'll show the
And then get
lock.
Okay. Then I'm going to go to the closed position and then close it now.
Yeah.
It's closed and now I'm going to fire it now. So the staplets are fired. Now we'll decompress a little. Yeah, okay. Now it's fired. Now once it's fired, now I'm going to get the helix out a little. Anti-clockwise rotation. Anti-clockwise, get the helix out. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the open position.
Respected
And
sir,
open the camera.
already it is 1:30, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to jaws are open and then you can see the nice second stapler there. Okay.
Yes, sir. It
Screen
is
now
excellent
I'm going to-
demonstration, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to close the opening close the jaws before we pull it out and then
Okay.
see the no mucosa comes in. Okay. And then we're going to pull it back. Okay. As I'm pulling it back, very important to keep the pediatric scope also straight. Otherwise, you can have some problems. Okay. The procedure is over now. You can see that we could put in 2 and hopefully with this, she'll have a nice valve formed there so that reflex won't be there. Okay. I think our time is up for this demonstration. So Samal,
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is
Can
off.
you-
1:30. I think some of the talk is going to start.
you're on or we are off?
You're on, sir. Still.
Yeah, so the procedure is over. We could show you the final result if you want endoscopically to show you how these staplers and the plaget looks endoscopically. I'm using the standard upper J endoscope for this. I'm going inside. I'm also checking for any trauma that can sometimes occur with this device. You can see it's a fairly big device. And already you can see there's some narrowing I can see of the G junction.
Yeah.
And I'm going to now come back, retrovert, to go to that area. And this is the area where we put the stapler. And you can see it's closed now. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And you can see that
Yeah.
like a valve formation that has occurred.
Funnel wrap.
Because of this. There's like a fundal wrap, what you get after fundoplication, and you can see the nice stapler there. Can you see those 2
Yes.
staplers there?
Yeah, visible.
Okay.
Visible. 1:05, 1:07 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 and 7 o'clock. Okay.
Thank you, sir. It was
So thanks a
excellent
lot.
demonstration.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samal. Thanks a lot. We just wanted to. I think we had 4 interesting cases. Thank you for moderating the session.